Presence channels work in exactly the same way as private channels, but they have an additional benefit. They allow you to expose who is currently in that channel and any details about them. Now, of course, we're going to go with the classic example of having a chat room where we can see who is currently online. We won't be building out the full chat because we have other courses that cover that, but we'll see how to do this now. Okay, before we get started, let's go ahead and do a little bit of setup in our application to get the interface working. So we're going to go and make out a model and we will call this room. So we'll have multiple rooms that we can join and we'll be able to see who is in what room. Now that we've done that, let's go ahead and just create out a really quick migration in here. And to be honest, we don't really need much data in here at all. We could just give this a room name. So let's say string name and we should be good. Before we migrate this, let's head over to the room factory and let's just randomly generate our name inside of this factory. So let's say fake and we'll say unique and finish that off with generating out a fake word. Okay, let's go and run our migrations. And let's go ahead and get some data into the database. So we'll run PHP Artisan and Tinker. And let's use that room model, app models and room, grab the factory and let's create our 2 different rooms that we can experiment with. Okay, so now that we've done that, let's build up a really simple interface. So over to our web root, let's go and create out a route for these rooms. So let's say room / and then we'll grab the room by its ID. We'll of course get the room through into here, which will pass down to a room view. And let's pass that down into there. And we also want this to be authenticated. So let's just grab the middleware and everything else from here, and we'll just give this a name of a room. Okay, so let's do exactly the same thing as we did in the last section. We'll grab our home template. We'll head over to the room view, which we haven't created just yet, so let's make health a view in here called room. Let's open that room template up and paste this in. And then here we want to output the room name, and then down here it will show a list of connected users. Okay, let's go over and have a look. So we don't really need to be on our dashboard. Let's go to room 1. There it is. And room 2. There it is. Great. So everything is set up now and we can start to look at within this having users connect to this channel. And then look at all of the events that we need to push to the list of users who are currently on this page. Let's get started. Inside About Channels root file, we're pretty used to just returning a true or a false value to see who can access a certain channel. What we want to do within a presence channel is return false if for any reason a user can't access a channel. But then what we want to do is rather than return true, we want to return all the data that we want the WebSocket server to hold about that user. So let's get rid of the default route inside of here and change everything up and create out a channel specifically for each of these rooms. Again, let's call this room ID so it's a little bit easier to see, and we'll go ahead and pass that in there as well. Now, we're not going to authorize this just yet, but the concept is exactly the same as a private channel. Remember, presence channels work in exactly the same way as a private channel, so feel free to add any conditions in here to stop a user accessing a particular room. Now, rather than return true or just return nothing, we can actually just return an array of any of the data that we want to hold about the current user who is accessing this. So again, let's go ahead and type in this user with the user model and let's return some data. So for example, we might want the user ID, particularly if we're iterating through on the front end and need some sort of unique key. And let's also do the same thing for the name as well. Now, there's a much easier way to do this. It's completely irrelevant to how presence channels work. But if you have a model within Laravel, you could do something like user only and then just pluck out the fields that you want to see. Either way, it doesn't really matter. Okay, so now that we've defined this channel, let's go ahead and connect to this inside of our template. So we'll go over to our room template here and once again just using pure JavaScript. And use echo to connect. So now we're going to say echo join and then we're going to pass in the room that we want to join. So we're going to say room. Obviously, because we're working within this template and it has the room, we can just very easily output the room ID directly in here. Okay. So the first thing we want to do is make sure that we're actually authorized to access this. So let's go over to Room 2. And over in our Network tab, you can see it works in exactly the same way. We're authorizing access to this. But the difference now is that our WebSocket server has knowledge of all of the details of our user. Let's head back over to the terminal and have a look here so you can see that we are now added. To this particular channel, we get this member added event. And as you can see under the data, we've got user info. We've got all of the information that we passed back from that channel that we defined. So all of this data is now held within our WebSocket server and is being pushed. If we leave the room, we'll get an event that we've left. And we also get an overall event as well that tells us who is currently in the room. Our job is now to hook into this and update a list of users who are currently here, who have joined, and who have left. Let's go ahead and do that now. In the last episode, we saw that we get these kind of events come through. Pusher internal member added with a bunch of data. Now, we don't have to listen to this event specifically with Echo to work out who's currently in the room. All of this is hidden behind Echo's API. So what we can do rather than listen to an event in here, we can just say here and that will give us all of the users or all of the models or whatever you're returning who are currently in this room. So let's go ahead and define our closure out in here, and this will give us a list of all of the users or whatever you're doing inside of this channel. So let's go and console log on users and see what we get. Okay, let's go over to our console, give this a refresh, and yeah. Sure enough, we have got an object or an array of objects of all of the people who are currently in this channel. I'm going to go ahead and create out another account within an incognito tab so we can see both of the users who are in here. So let's go and register out a new account within our application. Let's go over to that room and let's have a look and see what happens. Let's give this a refresh. Now Mabel's in there, and you can see sure enough we now have 2 users that are in that room. Now at the moment, it's a little bit flaky because we're only using one event. If, for example, Mabel leaves this room and goes back to the dashboard, you can see that this is still hanging around. Here will not be fired. That event will not be fired. When someone leaves a room, we need to use a couple of other events to make sure that we can keep this list up to date. Okay, so there are 2 other events that we can listen to on a presence channel. That is joining and leaving. So here will always be invoked when the user hits this page and this event gets sent, and it will tell us who's currently in the room. But we want to know who joins and who leaves so we can keep this list up to date. Let's go ahead and add in the joining event in here. That will just give us a single user who is currently joined. So let's create out a closure for this and let's just console log out that user for now. If we head back over to the browser, let's have a look here. I'm going to refresh both of these. You can see Mabel has joined, and we'll have exactly the same thing over this side as well. So when X joins, you can see that we get this dumped out. So this will keep everything up to date for all users. Now the next event is when a user is leaving. Any users who have left, and that will nicely keep the list up to date for us. Okay, let's go over and see this working. So I'm going to give both of these pages a refresh. I'm going to go back to my dashboard, back to this list, and we can just keep doing that over and over again, and everything is nicely kept up to date. In the next section, we will discuss whispering. If you don't want to miss the next tutorials on the channel, subscribe and activate the bell.